I'd love to help you get vulnerable. Let's get naked.
Welcome to the Let's Get Naked podcast. Today I am getting naked with my friend Belinda. Today we are going to talk about my ayahuasca experience that I went on in April of 2023. It's hard to believe that that was only 18 months ago because I feel like about 10 years has happened since then. But I'm going to tell everyone, all the listeners, and kind of talk through with Belinda what that entailed and why I felt like that was important to do that. So welcome, Belinda. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here.
Yeah, thanks. So I was actually kind of going back yesterday and this morning looking at some of my journals and some of my notes that gave the experience as I was living it. I'm really excited to be in a place where I've started journaling. Started doing that a couple years ago, but feel like that has really gained momentum as I've gone. But as I was kind of preparing for the ayahuasca journey and what I was going to be getting myself into, when I decided to do ayahuasca, do you know about ayahuasca? Like, tell me what you know about ayahuasca other than what I've told you.
I don't, and I was going to ask you to please tell me.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really good idea. I took some notes this morning just in a little bit of research so that people that are listening that maybe don't know what ayahuasca is would understand what it is. So here's what I found. It says, ayahuasca is a tropical vine that's native to the Amazon region. Its active chemical is DMT, so it's a psychedelic. Hallucinogenic, and that what you do is you drink a tea that they basically make from the bark of this ayahuasca. And I think there's some other stuff that's mixed in, but so they call that the vine of the soul, which I found to be very interesting because I feel like I didn't have that nugget of information prior to going down there, but that tracks based on my experience. It says it's been used for centuries in religious rituals and therapeutic purposes. The group that I went to, or the facility that I went to, was down in Costa Rica. It's a very small group of people. When I was doing my research for it, there's a lot of different places that you can do ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is not legal in the States, and so you have to go other places to do that. But there were a lot of different options. And some of them were like, you can come and do ayahuasca with 50 of your closest friends. And to me, that felt scary. Can you imagine going and doing that with like just the energy, right? Yeah. The energy of like 50 people dealing with all of that.
Can't imagine you have 50 people that understand where you are.
Right, exactly. Like if that felt super crazy, right? And I don't even know what that looks like. You're sleeping in bunk beds, and I've worked too hard in my life to do that, but whatever. So I don't even remember. I remember being at the house on 77th, and I don't remember what sparked it for me. I think I was listening to a couple of other podcasts where people had done ayahuasca. So I know like Ron White did ayahuasca, and he has a podcast on Joe Rogan where he was talking about his experience. And it was blowing my mind because for anybody that knows Ron White, he is raging alcoholic, and looks like he's a lot of fun, obviously a comedian and all of the things. But he was talking about after his experience how he had quit drinking. So for a man that's in his mid-60s to go from raging alcoholic to not drinking at all and coming from this place of like, it's just about love, man. It's all about love, and all of this shit. And I'm just like, all right, I'm in, because that sounds lovely, and a lot of people that you talk about that really being the death of your ego, which for me, I was at a place where that seemed very appealing. I think everybody has an ego, but I think most people's egos are out of check and probably to a very unhealthy level. Where again, I spent a lot of time thinking that the world revolved around me and all of those things. So even though I had been on my journey and got sober and all of the things, I constantly want to be the best version of myself, So deciding to do that a couple years ago, and it was interesting. I had started doing Moxie stuff up at the ranch, and for the listeners, Moxie to me is a project that I do that's not really anything other than just I want to be supportive to other women as they're doing life. Life is hard. And I think being able to really foster empowerment for women, not in any specific, not necessarily business stuff or not necessarily like just all the way around, what are your challenges? Where are you at in life? And fostering women that can be supportive to other people, not just me being able to be supportive, but really bringing women together, and you were at the Moxie thing and kind of understood what that was about, holding space for other women. So in doing that, and then also just like, what am I going to do? I was up on the ranch and just wasn't kind of certain where I was going. I knew that I was in a holding pattern and that I was supposed to be learning patience. And, my voice even cracks when I say it because it's just such a hard topic for me.
It's interesting because I've known you for so long that I'm just realizing and thinking back to all those many years where you have actually naturally just been able to hold space for other people. Where you learned was holding space for yourself.
Yeah.
And so now it's all coming.
God, that was powerful for you to say that, because I think you're absolutely right. I think this podcast for me is really helping me kind of open up a lot of doors and look at a lot of things. You're talking to people maybe that you haven't talked to in a while, or you're telling stories or bringing stuff out, and it's just bringing a lot of things about. And I think you're absolutely right. I think I have been good about holding space for other people, but not for myself. And so in that period of time with whatever work it was that I was doing up at the ranch, and just being isolated from things and really taking time for myself and on that journey, realizing that, okay, I want to figure out how to do that. And maybe I didn't understand that concept, but that's exactly what I've done in this process, So when I was doing the intake interview with the ayahuasca guy, because they want to make certain that you're a good fit, that, at the place that I chose to go to, it wasn't just pay your money and go. It was, we're going to interview you to make certain that you're coming for the right reasons, and not just like, oh, I saw Ron White did it, but like also Aaron Rodgers did it. I mean, Chelsea Handler talks about her experience, and just really how lovely that is to connect you to the earth, to get rid of your ego, to really kind of like center you. And it just sounded very much like what I was in for,
What did you feel that was any of the components that said, I think I'm ready for this?
You know me, but for listeners that don't know me, I'm kind of an all-in, and not just a little all-in. Like, I hit things with a hammer. And so as soon as I got that on my mind, and it just really felt like I really want to do this, I didn't really have any one thing. It was just like, I'm a, flap it in the breeze, kind of let's go, kind of gal. And so as soon as I was doing some research and I was reading on the one website for where I went specifically, I was very intrigued by what they had going on. And there was something that I want to pull out and see if I can read to you. So, so sorry, this is going to have to get cut so that I can tell you. So on their website, it says, elevate your consciousness to unlock more of what's already inside you. Quiet mind and harmonious emotions proven to quiet the mind and enhance cognition, mood, and consciousness, overcome past trauma, negativity, judgment, and lower level emotions like shame, guilt, fear, envy, and pride. Deepen your inspiration and motivation. Improve your self-understanding for more inspiration, clarity, and motivation to care for yourself, right, holding space for yourself, absolutely. Break through and let go of any limiting beliefs and behavior. Peaceful, more loving relationships, greater empathy and love for others. Find inner peace and overcome triggers. Serve as an example to encourage family, friends, and colleagues to do their inner work. When I read that this morning, because I'm going back looking at, my notes from stuff,
isn't that crazy? You're predicting the future.
Serve as an example to encourage family, friends, and colleagues to do their inner work.
So yes, I just heard something the other day, where this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to write down where you want to go and hold it somewhere and read it over and over again and whatever, do all the things. And then that opens the path to exactly that.
Which is crazy, because when I'm having this conversation with the with the onboarding guy, he's asking me why am I pursuing this? And I told him, I said, I want to be the most clean, energetically that I possibly can, because I'm supposed to support other women. That's literally what I told him, right? Because I'm looking back at this. I don't know the words that are coming out of my mouth when I'm speaking to that man. Like, I knew that from the Moxie thing,
sure,
and from other things, but I look at the last 18 months, which has felt like a rocket ship, of everything that we're doing, right? I've started a business that helps other small businesses and helping other people be amazing. Starting a podcast where it is, hopefully, being able to promote women to be amazing to each other and also take care of ourselves and figure out all of the things. Everyone that is around me, my friends, my colleagues, that's exactly what I'm doing, what that says as far as, really helping everybody figure their shit out and elevate and like all of the things. Wow. Right. Mm-hmm. So when I'm telling this guy, I don't know, but I know that I'm like in my core, in my gut, I know that I'm supposed to be doing this. And it was a scary thing, I'm going to go do international travel by myself, which has never been a thing for me. Right. So to be able to like go do that and know that that's what you're supposed to be doing. I'm sober, so what does that look like as far as it's a drug, obviously, and so I didn't have any feelings bad about that, but other people that know me in the being sober were concerned about that as well. Like, are you sure you want to be doing this and like whatever? And for me, I don't twist that stuff up with my alcohol. My alcoholism is a completely different animal, but yeah, I mean, there's things that you go into that with concern, Cameron probably thought I was crazy. I come home and I'm like, okay, guess what I'm doing now? And I just,
this probably doesn't surprise him anymore.
It doesn't, but it's like, he's always very supportive of that, but really deciding to go on this mission and knowing that I don't know other than I want to be the best possible that I can for myself so that I can be the best for other women, and that translates to other men as well. But, specifically my focus has been on women and just the individual challenges that women deal with. So I find it interesting to think back to, laying on the bed, having this conversation with that guy about why I'm going. And that was only 18. Well, I guess maybe it was, 2 years ago, because I was talking to him a few months before I went, but that's crazy town, and then going, and the things that happened to me when I was there, I don't think you can get your head around it. Like, I'm looking back at my journal and it's talking about like, I don't think there's words, like you can describe things in words for what happens. But I just don't think there's words, and I prepared myself to go down there in a way where you have to do this whole dieta where you're, 30 days out, you're not drinking caffeine, you're not eating pork or red meat, you're, all of the things so that, you're going in, you're trying to limit technology and do all of these different things. So you're making a really big commitment to do this, both financially and just the preparation and the time that you're away to do all of these things. And so it was a pretty crazy thing. I have yet to find anybody in my personal life that has done it, and so I would love to talk to other people about what their experiences are, not just listening to a podcast, but being able to question, like, how did that go for you, or what did that look like? Because it was pretty crazy.
Oh, that sounds it sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, just like Tyler was explaining how all of his connections and what he's doing is just spider webbing.
Yeah.
I look at it from below and look at it, just looks like veins, they're all connecting. And for all the things, even you saying international travel, there are women out there that won't even think of getting on a plane by themselves or even think about planning any of that, much less going to another country. And I've been to this country, so I understand it's difficult to find your way around, difficult to communicate with people, and driving is you have to pray that you're not going to wreck on one of those little bridges that are one lane. And hit a little motorcyclist.
Yeah.
So, yes, I completely understand that aspect of it, but it's just so much bigger. Like, it's so huge. for all of it.
Yeah.
Brave and so super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know what else to say about it, but like having done ayahuasca, like how do you feel about it now? Unless you want to talk about the in between.
Yeah.
So the experience of it and then and where you are now.
Yeah. So it's crazy to me because I feel like I've been on this journey, and for those that are close around me who understand, kind of where that's gone with, getting sober and starting to work on myself and really like starting to propel myself forward in that. But I feel like as I've continued to go, it feels like a kind of like a snowball at the top of a hill that's gaining momentum and mass as it's going down. And so the ayahuasca process for me was, I feel like, nothing but teachers, the whole entire process. So starting with international travel as a female by herself, right, which felt intimidating to me. And coming from this place of I'm not living in fear, I'm doing the things. I'm doing it smart, right? I'm not just like willy-nilly. I'm not out in
Sure.
unknown places after dark and stuff like that. But, still feels intimidating to do that. So that was a teacher for me, in that. When I got down there, I stayed at a hotel on the beach the first night before going to the retreat center, and it was Easter weekend, and so it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. The amount of people that were down there, I had no idea. Like I had no idea what I was walking into. But the hotel was crazy, so busy, loud, like all of these different things. The lock on the door for this room, it was like a glass door, and the lock was like you could just put a butter knife in there and open it wide open.
Yours locked, mine didn't.
Exactly. I know. It's just like, what is happening? And I'm like, how am I supposed to feel safe in this room? Before I went, one of the gals that I know, she says, make sure to put a door or a chair blocking the door on the inside. And I just was laughing with the universe because the only chair in the room was like an office chair on wheels. And I'm like, all you have to do is get a butter knife and you're coming in. And it's so busy and crazy and like the energy there. And the energy didn't feel good at the hotel. Like I'm very much a person that believes in energy and, all of the stuff that goes into that. And so that was really bringing up a lot of stuff for me. I mean, I think that whole entire trip was just about trigger after trigger after trigger, and dealing with it. But I was very in tune with, I know why I'm here. I went down very clear, being able to journal with all of that stuff. So I get to the retreat center, and the first guy that was there that met me, maybe late 20s, but just had the coolest energy on the planet. He was so calm. And so like you just felt at peace immediately with him, and then other people that would come that were part of that, same thing, and they were all folks that were obviously into, doing this and what that brought, but they just felt so connected with the earth, and everything is very like talking about Mother Earth and what she wants to show you, and they call ayahuasca the mother. The cool kids apparently call ayahuasca Aya. There was a gentleman that was on my trip that was he had apparently done this several times, and so he was kind of the leader in getting everybody up to speed on the lingo. But I felt like at that first dinner that I was at. Have you ever seen that movie Dinner for Schmucks?
Long time ago.
It was so weird because it was like the weirdest group of people on the planet, right? Everyone lovely. I don't mean that, and I don't say weird as a bad thing. Weird is a lovely thing for me, but everyone was so unique and individual and there for different things. But a lot of it was trauma related. There was a gal that was there who had both of her sons had died at 20 and 22. Like that woman, you could feel the grief just dripping off of her, and she was there. She had brought a friend for support. There was another girl that was there who had an enormous amount of sexual trauma that she was working through, right? There's, somebody there that was working through, just various things, whatever it was. A lot of trauma was a big part of what people were there to work through, which feels very heavy, because as soon as I walk in and as soon as you start meeting the other guests, you're just sharing everything because these are not people that you're going to see again. They're not people that they're all there for the same thing, right? They're all in and obviously have gone to a lot of trouble to be there as well. So you're literally just talking with people about the grossest, nastiest things that are in your past, you know? And I felt like very liberated in that conversation of being able to do stuff. You know, I was coming off of our Moxie event, you know, a few months before I went, where I led with vulnerability. And that was a big step for me at that first dinner, and then also throughout that entire weekend. And so really knowing that, like, that's where it's at for me, is I'm going to lead with vulnerability. So when we sat down at the dinner table the first night and it was like, okay, Anne, let's start with you. I was like, okay, here we go. And I just kind of like vomited some shit all over the table, but it set the stage for so much.
It's like it was a domino effect.
It is, right?
Literally
And that's why I tell people, like, again, I always thought vulnerability was a weakness. You know, growing up, it was like, we don't.
And that's your superpower.
Yeah, it's my superpower now. It is. I've done I'm going to build a whole life based on leading with vulnerability, you know, because I think how valuable that is and how brave and how strong. And every time I see someone else lead with vulnerability, I'm like, wow, it's impressive. So to have led with vulnerability in that, and then have people that are sharing their stories as well, you know, and the stuff that I thought I was going down there to work on, didn't work on a single item of that, you know. It had a totally different message for me of stuff that I was supposed to work on. You know, one of the guys, I had talked about childhood sexual trauma in that first dinner opening. And after the dinner, which by the way is like bird food, because they don't actually feed you down there. They want you to be like, they don't give you coffee. They don't give you, you know, it's like, oh, everything is plant-based. I'm like, I'm going to need a burger. They don't give you that. So anyway, so after the bird seed dinner, we're sitting around talking. And one of the guys that I'm sitting across from is telling me how powerful my story about sexual trauma is, because I'm talking about, you know, brothers of friends and stuff that happened when I was younger, and all of these different things that just, it kept happening. It was just all of this stuff. It was one thing after another of just like, oh my God, you know, and I didn't acknowledge that for a long time, for a lot of years, but as I'm digging into my past and remember, it's like, this is really adding up to be pretty traumatic childhood, which is, you know, again, whatever, it's just part of my story. But I'm sitting across from this guy, and he said something about how powerful it was, what I shared at the dinner. And he was talking about him as a teenager being that boy that molested other girls, and he knew that they didn't want him to do that because their bodies but he didn't stop. And I'm sitting across from him. I'm getting full body chills right now. Sitting across from him, and my soul literally flinched, because it was like, this man is here to heal from that same shit, right? Like, it really opened my eyes to so much stuff, because this guy's not a monster. This tore him up from feeling like what a horrible person he was, but no one told him to stop, you know? And so it's like that whole thing of getting consent. And, you know, I think a lot of people can't get their heads around women not having a voice, but we literally have been raised to not have a voice, you know? And so him kind of going into that, and me hearing another perspective of the other side of that, it blew my doors off. I haven't even done ayahuasca yet. I've just barely walked in the door and had a first meal, right? And we're talking about this kind of stuff. Wow. And I'm like, holy shit, right? Like, I knew it was going to be big just based on that, you know? And then you're talking with other people that also have different stories about the stuff that they've gone through, because everyone is raw. Everyone is coming in willing to share all of the things, you know? And so being able to really freely speak about all of the stuff, you know? And then the space was beautiful. And the things that they're doing, right? You're doing meditations and Reiki and you know, really deep yoga kind of stuff to really prepare yourself for it. So then the next day, you're just kind of hanging and waiting and getting ready. We went down you meet the shaman and, you know, the people that are going to be there. I guess I didn't realize, but apparently all of the people that are there, facilitators, are also going to be doing ayahuasca, which did not make me feel safe. I'm like
who's watching who?
I know. I was like, this feels not on the books. You know, and they're like, don't worry, Allison's going to be up top watching from a video. I'm like, really? Does that make me feel better? Everyone down here is going to be tripping our balls off. You know what I mean? Like, okay. And again, in for a penny, in for a pound. It's like, if you sign up for it, we're all in. So, you know, I told one of the gals, and again, everyone's energy is just excellent there, right? They're all, I don't know how to explain it. It just felt like a whole nother world. But I told one of the other gals as we're walking into the ceremony space that I didn't want to be next to a guy because there's only 9 of us. And but the space that you're doing it is like a semicircle of basically like bed mats that are rolled out so that you have your own private space to lay or meditate or do whatever. I said, I don't want to be next to a man because I knew that I was going to be dealing with sexual trauma and I didn't feel safe, or I shouldn't say I knew, I thought I was going to be dealing with sexual trauma and I wanted to feel safe. And so I, the gal put me in between 2 women and they saged us before we get into the space and like all of the stuff. So they're explaining everything, and the stuff that they're giving you to enhance the ayahuasca is like something called rape, where they're going to blow some shit up your nose. I thought it was smoke. No, they're going to blow finely ground tobacco and some other weird stuff up into your face, which I already had said I'm not doing. I already have sinus things. I'm like, let's not poke the bear. You know what I mean? Like, if it can make you blind, let's hit skip on that one. You know what I mean? But as I'm watching them go around, give this to other people, like they're crying or screaming or like whatever, I'm thinking, what have I gotten myself?
Did it work instantly? Like, what was it?
It was apparently
Burn?
painful. Yeah, and they're like, don't worry, it'll just make you be able to see things more. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Oh, you didn't do it?
I didn't do it. I didn't do that. And then the second night they offered eye drops. Again, we're in Costa Rica. This is not individual dosed eye drops. They're just randomly, you have no idea who these people are that are putting eye drops in your eyes.
Sure.
I'm like, again, let me just stick with the ayahuasca. So it's dark outside. There's people that are there. They're going to be playing music. There's this beautiful woman in a white gown who just feels like an angel. I don't even know what her name was. She didn't even speak. But she literally, her presence just felt calming. It's just one of those, right? So the bed rolls are set up so that you have a roll of toilet paper at the front. You have a purge bucket, and
a roll of toilet paper. Okay,
and a purge bucket, and yeah, and again, I'm sitting here going, what the hell did I get myself into? Like, what am I getting ready to do? It felt so crazy,
It sounded real.
It's like, I'm doing this. I guess I'm doing this. Like, what are you going to do? Walk away? So they prepare the stuff, and he goes around, and you go up to the front where there's this kind of altar, very, very formal, very like wackadoo. Like, they do not disappoint, and the shaman is barefoot and comes directly out of the jungle. It's a whole thing. It's just, I don't know what else to say. We had this whole fire ceremony, and he was explaining like my son who was born in the jungle and like all of this shit, which again triggered a whole nother thing because my sister died giving birth in a, like not in the hospital. So again, like this whole experience is a teacher for me about all of the different things, But so we drink the ayahuasca, and he says, okay, we're going to meditate for about 45 minutes before it starts to kick in. And my mind will not stop racing. I can't wait to see what this is going to be, and I don't know what I'm getting into, and like this whole experience. And so I didn't really, like 45 minutes comes, I lay down, I start seeing, and again, I'm going to describe it in words, but it doesn't do it justice. Like, I'm saying the words, and even as I'm saying them, I'm like, this doesn't scratch the surface of how crazy this felt. But I'm laying there and my eyes are closed, and I feel like, you know how you see like old pictures from like black and white, and they're 1900s or whatever, 1800s, and you see these pictures. And it literally felt like just one of those TV reels where it's just going by so fast, and it's all different black and white images of people from maybe ancestors or something, I don't even know, but it was happening so fast that I couldn't really get on anything. And I opened my eyes because I'm thinking, am I going to see this? I don't know what to expect, right?
Sure.
So it's like, am I going to see
your vision?
Right, exactly. Am I going
to
to see this if my eyes are open or if my eyes are closed? I wasn't sure, So I opened my eyes and it went away. And so I'm like, okay, so I got to have my eyes closed. So I closed my eyes, and I don't think that's true for everybody. That was just like my initial experience for stuff. And I closed my eyes, and I'm like trying to invite it to come back, and it's not coming back. And I'm like, well, shit, did I just break it? I don't know what I did wrong. So then we get whatever time into it, and the shaman offers a second cup of the ayahuasca. And I'm like, I'm in. Yeah,
You're like, because I turned it off somehow.
I know, I turned it off. I need another glass. And so I think I was one of the only ones. I think maybe there was just only one other person that got the second cup. And so I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like, you know, whatever. So I get the second cup and I go back and I lay down. And after it kicks in, after a while, I start having what is like the only way I can describe the wheel of fortune that's happening. And it's like this wheel that's going, right? Just like whoever the guy was with the wheel of fortune. Not the wheel of fortune, the Price is Right.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's
Bob Barker.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
And it stops on a picture of my first husband's face. And I was like, I didn't know that was something I needed to deal with. And in hindsight, looking back, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And for anyone that doesn't know me, I met my first husband when I was 15. I was never a big fan of my first husband. I actually was dating his best friend. His best friend and I broke up, and we all were just running in the same circles, and it just was like a natural fit of like, oh, you're single, I'm single at the same time kind of thing. He was a way for me to move out of my parents' house, which I did when I was, 16 years old, because he had his own place. He was a couple of years older than I was. And looking back over those years, both when I was a teenager and living with him and getting married and having kids and like all of that, they were not good years. Like, they were not good times, And I feel like I have done with a lot of other stuff in my life where I just blocked that stuff and moved on. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I don't have time to process things. You just go, Yeah. You're in like survival mode and just go, 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 go. So the fact that was what that landed on, and it was clear as day to me. I mean, literally, I haven't seen the man in decades, right? I haven't seen the man in maybe not decades, but long time, like, 10 years maybe. So his face being there, it hit me like a ton of bricks I needed to unpack those years, right? Just that time. And I was married to him until I was 24. So for a girl from 15 to 24 to be in a relationship where he was very controlling, he was emotionally and mentally abusive, it was not great, and during that time, having 2 kids where I'm trying to just keep people alive, and all of the things that went into that. I mean, I had a crazy experience in that, and I never processed any of it, never unpacked anything, never really realized the impact of what that did for me, which was crazy, So I'm thinking back to a time where there was some sexual trauma that happened with him, and it brought up all of these other things, right? And I feel like during that ayahuasca thing, I'm watching myself from the corner of the ceiling of sexual trauma as it's happening, right? And I'm a person who has not had a great memory, and so I've had all of this stuff where it's been blocked, right? And so it's coming up, right? And it's like reliving it. It's like you're watching, from a movie, right? And so I'm like, the one scene that's coming up is like me laying naked on the bed, so drunk. I was blackout drunk, and, obviously awful things happening. And I'm watching this from the ceiling of the bedroom, and it's sparking all of these other things that are coming up, right? All of these other traumas that I just had put down, right? And I just can't even explain how crazy all of that felt, as I was just watching that. I felt like I cried a few times, just for a few minutes at a time is what it felt like. And then there was this angel that I was telling you about, this woman in white who was just very soft-spoken and very at peace. When I would feel like overwhelmed about stuff, I would look up and she would be over me, like just really holding space for me in such a beautiful way. I felt like at one point later into the process that someone had a hold of what felt, I'm describing this in words, but I don't know how to, it's just words because it doesn't do justice to what that experience was. But I literally felt like someone was holding on to like an octopus head at the top of my head and pulling out the tentacles from inside of my body, you know? And I literally felt like I could feel that pulling from my toes and my fingers and just in my guts. I literally felt like, and I don't know how long that went on, but it felt painful.
I got chills.
I know. I
could feel it.
It's literally, it felt like that. And then by the time it almost was like that slimy, gross, and it sucked it out. Ew. And I just like went limp, and I opened my eyes and I looked, and that shaman was there with his sage and a feather at the top of my head just pulling. And I could not get my head around what was happening, wow. You know? And that beautiful angel was there, and she was singing quietly. And I was just like, I could not get my head around what that was, but it literally felt like just that experience. And I knew that I was ready then to tackle what had happened between 15 and 24 and really unpack that and use that for the power that it is, you know? But I had just blocked that all down and didn't know that even needed to be cleaned out in order for me to be able to be helpful to other women and to be able to do the work that I really, you know, I feel like I'm called to do, you know? Yeah. So it felt very powerful, to me in that moment. So we finished the experience, which lasts like 6 hours, by the way. I mean, of course, they offer a third cup. Sure, let's take a third cup. I mean, it was a whole thing for me. And while I'm doing that, I'm not noticing anyone else around me doing very much, you know? And so I'm like, okay, maybe everyone's just, I don't know what to expect, right? So get through all of that. Had some revelations about stuff with my daughters, which was very important because I've been very vocal about not being what they deserved and what they needed. You know, I was a baby when I had babies and just did the best that I could with what I had. But looking back at all of that, like, wow. So there was a lot of other stuff that came out, but kind of the biggest thing for me was just that chunk of time and really being able to heal that. So that octopus thing comes out, the time is over, we can go back to our rooms now, everyone else is staying and like talking about their experience, and I just want to get the hell out of there, you know what I mean? I just want to go back to my room and be by myself, because I literally just feel like I got my ass kicked in a kung fu fight. I mean, I am drained, I can't even get my head around it, and I'm still, what I'll say is high as a kite. But I asked, like, can I leave? And they're like, sure. Well, the place that they're doing this is literally 10 to 15 flights of stairs down from where my room is on this lovely path outside. So now I'm trying to climb stairs to get back to my room where there's people watching you, but no one's watching me. I literally laid down on the ground 4 or 5 times on the way to my room because I thought I was either going to shit my pants or throw up, and I literally didn't know which one. I was afraid it was going to both happen, and I'm just like, for the love of God, please just make it to your room, right? Get to my room, had the most explosive diarrhea of my life, right? Which feels, again, when you're into doing this kind of big work, when you're throwing up or when you're shitting yourself, it's actually a good thing, right? Yeah. Because it usually is like you're getting stuff out, sure, right?
Detox.
Yeah, exactly. You're detoxing. And so, excellent. So I slept, got up the next morning, went to breakfast. Everyone's sharing their experiences. And everyone's like, yeah, so I only took 1 cup, and this is kind of what I saw, and this was nice, and it's all like butterflies and roses, and I'm thinking, what the hell, you know? And so I'm explaining to them, you know, the octopus and kind of the stuff that I saw, and the one guy that's leading the thing is like, oh my God, that's incredible, and I'm thinking, okay, good, I'm doing good work, you know, whatever. And I was saying, like, yeah, I cried a couple of times, and the one gal that was next to me looked at me and she goes, you were sobbing for hours.
Oh, wow.
And I just thought, I mean, it just hit me like a ton of bricks, right? But you're healing all of that stuff as you're doing it, you know? And so the experience that I went on was supposed to be a 3-day situation. After the first day, I was like, I felt so drained. I mean, I literally...
You're like, I got it all out.
Exactly. I mean, it was crazy. So the next day, I'm doing Reiki, I'm going to the yoga, which is, again, lovely. All of the people that are there to do this have this energy that they are connected with the mother. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. The energy there was incredible. So we get to where we're supposed to do the second day, and I'm having to like talk myself into doing this again, because it's bringing back all of these things for me, right? It's triggering everything. All the bells in me are going off for all of the things. And so I really didn't want to do the second day. But I'm going to do it. I'm figuring out how to get my life together so that I can, get down there to do this space. And I had written a letter to my first husband and burned it in the fire when we went down. They said, that was really good to do. And it was actually really helpful for me to be able to do that. Because in being able to like know that was a thing and that was a horrible whatever. And yes, I can unpack any of that when I get home, but I just want to leave that whole thing there. I want to leave the trauma of that there, and not let that have power over me anymore. Because even though I didn't realize that it did, I can see that now that it absolutely, had a big hold on stuff, had a big impact on things. And so we get down to the second night, and I decide I am not doing the eye drops. I'm going to have 1 cup, because everyone else only had 1 cup, and they seemed to have a nice time. I mean, they still were getting stuff and whatever, but, the second night is when everyone else decided to let her rip. And so they're all doing 2 and 3 cups. Everyone around me is puking their guts out, screaming, crying. I'm just like, it was uncomfortable to be part of, because I'm trying to have like I'm going to have a chill, experience. And yes, I feel like in the first night, I got what I came for. You know what I mean? I felt like I was blocked with something. I was able to figure out whatever that was. The second night was really for me like a lot more compassion. It felt like a lot of just holding space for other people around me as they were going through their stuff. And it was hard. That lady that lost 2 of her kids, she only had 2 sons. She lost one at 20, one at 22. Like, get your head around how much grief that woman had, but she's throwing up. And I mean, it was crazy, powerful stuff. The next night, we go to a dinner where they start talking about just crazy stuff, like what's going to be next on your journey. And I'm thinking, what do you mean next? This is a pretty big deal. Like, I feel like I'm good, but they're talking about all of these other psychedelics and other stuff that you can do and whatever. I'm at the point where I've had enough, and it started to feel a little culty, and I was like, they're talking about experiences where you go into the rainforest and you do a sweat lodge, and then you go into the rainforest for 4 days, and you don't have food or water, and you're laying in a space that's the size of a coffin. Feels not like something I'm interested in doing, and I'm a pretty good sport about getting all in on stuff, And so the dinner felt like, did you ever see the movie The Devil's Advocate? And it had Al Pacino. The guy felt like Al Pacino, and I was like, check, please. Oh, wow. So we finished dinner, and I had decided after that dinner, I'm going to go home. Like, I've had enough. The third experience was supposed to be an all-nighter, where we go, and we just don't sleep all night, and we end up on the beach, and it's a whole thing. And I'm just like, I don't have it in me. Like, I literally don't have it in me.
You turn into a mermaid.
I know, exactly. The mermaid thing could potentially have been a thing. I mean, who knows at that point what you're getting yourself into. So I woke up the next morning, and I went and told the gal, I'm like, I'm good. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, I'm done. If you can make an arrangement for my car, I've changed my flight. I'm going to go home. She's like, no, people don't leave. And I'm like, I get it, but she's like, we've never had anyone leave. I'm like, I respect that, but I am good. Like, this is enough for me. And not that I wouldn't do it again. I just, doing it 3 nights in a row was just like, this is a lot. You know, I felt like it was too much. And I needed to honor me in that situation, so I was able to get a flight and get home, and then I proceeded to kind of numb for a couple of weeks as I went, what the hell did I just do? So, so that was my ayahuasca
You were
experience.
being good to yourself.
I was being good to myself, and I think that that's a big part of this journey. But as I've gone back and looked at the ayahuasca thing specifically to kind of like prepare for coming and talking about this today, it's blowing my mind that was only 18 months ago. Because I still lived up north. I knew I was going to do something with women, but now I find myself in all of these places, like you said, writing down your intentions for things and then just allowing that to happen, even though you don't know specifically where you're going to go. I knew I wanted to be helping other women, right? I feel like I am able to lead with vulnerability in a way that helps facilitate that for other women as well, so that they don't feel alone. Helps them feel like they can also share their stories, you know? And so to find myself and knowing that this podcast it's going to go wherever it's supposed to go. And if you just release things to the universe and say, I'm willing to use me for my highest good, I'm willing to do whatever I'm supposed to be doing. God, that's crazy scary, but like super fun too.
So listening to you, I don't know that this is really a thing. I might just be trying to connect, but the first night you said that the door wouldn't lock. You've always had a thing about safety.
Yeah.
And there was an experience that you also had that I correlate that with when you ran out of the room, nearly slipped on a carpet, police were all in your backyard, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
You actually have not ever really, even from your teens, from your childhood, ever felt safe.
It's true.
And so now unlocking that and understanding that you are safe, you feel safe, and now you're wanting everyone else to feel safe.
Yeah.
So you're sharing that.
It's crazy to me because you don't realize some of that stuff until you're really willing to look at the dark and gross stuff, you know, because not feeling safe is huge. And I didn't realize how big that was. But I can't remember a time in my entire life where I felt safe.
I heard it.
Right.
You just explained it all.
Right. You know, and so even to be at this point as a 47-year-old woman who I work on that now, you know, after kind of having my eyes open to that, but really addressing things of safety, you know, and knowing whatever it was that messed me up, that hurt me when I was a kid, that, you know, made me so that I didn't feel safe, so that, you know, all of the things, like that's coming out like a fire hose right now for me of, well, obviously you didn't feel safe, you know, because I'm looking at all of these memories and stuff that are coming up because I'm allowing them to come up, you know. It's really crazy to me, you know.
It's no wonder you're giving that away now.
Yeah.
Safety.
Yeah.
Because you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. I think I look at this journey that I've been on in trying to get myself clean to a place where I would really want to be able to help other women, because I don't want to bring bad energy into any of that. I really want to be able to hold space and keep my cup full and like do all of the things so that I'm giving from my overflow, and that the energy that I'm able to provide is clean and doesn't bring any gross stuff into it. But as you're doing that, the work that you have to do to get to that point is like,
It's your life's work, actually.
it's my life's work, you know, but it's like, you know, understanding the thing about the safety, or understanding the thing about, you know, I had a thing about claustrophobia, and I started getting really curious with myself about where that stems from, and that absolutely stems from a lack of safety, you know, and I really was able to kind of break that down to that point. I was in an MRI a couple weeks ago, and I'm on this mission of like, if it bumps into my stuff, I want to know. I want to get really curious. So it's like, I'm a grown woman who, you know, is having a hard time getting into an MRI machine. Not that I won't do it. I'll force myself to do it because that's just who I am. I'll, you know, be a bull and push things through, which is obviously not the right thing either. But that's just who I've been traditionally. So to be at this place of like, let's get curious about where this comes from so that I can fix it. Because I just want to fix stuff. I want to fix everything. I want to fix everything that doesn't serve me or that doesn't suit me. Sure. I want to fix it. So I'm laying in that MRI, and it was like one of those full body scans. And so I'm asking her, like, how long is this going to be? And she says 45 minutes. And I've been in an MRI machine for like 10 minutes before, you know, whatever. 45 minutes is a long time. So I told myself, all right, Ann, let's get curious about where this comes from, you know. And I laid there and I just let my mind do its thing. You know, when you'll allow your mind to just go in whatever places it needs to figure stuff out, it's crazy powerful, like crazy powerful. So I'm just letting my mind go to where would that come from, you know, and what does claustrophobia feel like to you? It feels dark. It feels unsafe. It feels, you know, all of the things. And I was able to really kind of tie it back to things where I felt like that really stemmed from. And I just laid in that MRI machine with my eyes open, because I'd never been able to open my eyes in there before, with my eyes open with tears running down my face, because I knew I could fix it. I knew as soon as I knew where it came from, that I could heal that part from myself, and that I could fix it, and that I could not have that be a thing anymore. You know what I mean? I'm really on this mission of, I don't want to live in fear. Claustrophobia is just a fear of whatever it is, right? All of these things, we talk about all of the things, all these shitty character defects that I'm working on. Just fear. Fear is at the base of all of those things, So when you say, I will not live in fear, you have to be willing to go and dig up those things of,
whatever it is
that it came from, So it's like, I think for me, this ayahuasca thing really brought forward a bunch of stuff, So now I have this journal that I write in that's just specific to the stuff that brought up, or just specific to the years of my first husband, because, I have been able to offer forgiveness to him, not for him, for me, right? It has nothing to do with him, right? He was just doing the best that he could with what he had. He's not some monster, but I always had him painted after the fact about some monster because of how horrible those years were for me. Again, if I don't speak up for myself and say, like, this isn't right, that shit's just going to continue to happen, right?
Sure.
But I didn't have a voice in that. That I needed that out so that I could not be living at my house, and that I could, that was an out for me. I wouldn't change anything. I don't have any regrets. But being able to really offer forgiveness to him and show him grace, and knowing that he was just doing the best that he could. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He had a terrible upbringing. His story with his parents and step parents and sister and all of the stuff, terrible. What do I think that does to a human being, for how they would then respond to stuff? He was just doing the best that he could, But when you're really able to, like, take the monster out of the monster, if that makes any sense to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Same thing with, like, a boy who would have molested me as a child. To hear that guy at the ayahuasca talk about him being that monster. He wasn't a monster. He was just trying to heal himself from knowing that wasn't right. And obviously there were other things that he was working on as well. But when you have those kind of really deep-seated things that come from your childhood that you just put shame and darkness and stuff on top of, and there's secrets and there's all of this gross stuff, because we don't speak our truth. We don't say the things, we don't want people to judge us, or we don't want, whatever. No, take the monster out of the monster, being able to really do that for my first husband. I have nothing but good feelings towards him, for him and his life. Like, I'm happy that I don't have to co-parent. That was a terrible situation, for the years that we did. And I'm happy to not have to, like, be twisted up in that stuff emotionally anymore. But I don't have feelings like that anymore. I was really able to show him grace in that situation and say, I wish you well. I wish you well. I hope that things have gotten better for you, that you're able to unpack your own stuff, and that you're not haunted by your demons. I think people don't realize, if you don't address these things, if you don't pull them out, if you don't, deal with them and reconcile them, right? You just drag them around. I didn't realize for so long, for so many years, that I drug so much garbage around. And now it's like, every time I bump into a trigger, or I bump into something that makes me uncomfortable, I run at it with an enthusiasm that's almost embarrassing, because I'm like, oh my God, something else I can fix, because I just had so much garbage.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that Cameron is still around to watch as I fix this shit, I mean,
That's
it's
lovely.
It is lovely, How can I believe for a second that he and I aren't meant for each other, Because it's like, he's just been that person for me that puts up with my crap as I figure it out, It's not pretty. I wrote on that breakfast morning that I was saying, where I was telling the people, like, oh, I was crying a few times, and the one lady's like, you were sobbing for hours, and they were telling me their experiences, and I, of course, led with vulnerability and told mine, and mine was like a 10, and theirs was all like a 2, because again, they only had one cup and like all of the things. I kind of jump in. I'm a cannonballer. I will cannonball first before anybody else. But I wrote down in my journal after that, like, I'm pretty sure I'm a 9 on a crazy 1 to 10 scale. And I didn't realize that before, I thought maybe I was a little bit more, I thought maybe I played it cool.
Girl, no. if we're bungee jumping, you're going first.
For sure, right? And so it's just like, I'm a 9. And I don't know what a 10 looks like. Maybe I'm at a 10 now. I don't know, because it's just gotten crazier and crazier. But speaking of which, What on a scale of 1 to 10 do you feel like you're at a crazy?
Oh no.
No, 10?
I'm like a 3.
Okay, so then that's what I'm worried about. That's the whole thing I'm worried about, because everyone around me is probably looking at, the self-awareness that I'm recently getting about who I am. Cameron says to me a couple of weeks ago, he says, I don't think you realize the level of your enthusiasm.
Yeah.
You know? And he said that, and then you send me the whole like jumping on the trampoline crazy lady, and like this is what that looks like.
Oh, I sent you another one too, Nancy.
Oh my God. And I'm just like, oh my God, I am that person. But I think it's just a self-awareness thing, right? It doesn't make me want to change anything. It's
I'm
just,
a 3 on my own. I'm an 8 with you.
I love that. That's the biggest compliment. Thank you. I love that for us. You know, I love that for us.
Yeah, it's fun.
It is fun. You know, it's interesting because one of the things that Brene Brown says is like trying to be cool is like a straitjacket, you know, for your spirit. You're supposed to be awkward and brave and weird and, you know, all of the things, you know. So I say those things as a compliment. When I say people are weird, I'm like, I love it. Like, be your individual selves. But I think, you know, I think that's going to be my may I suggest, just based on your saying that with the 3 to the 8 is that's going to be my may I suggest for this week is really being able to embrace that in yourself, you know, whatever your crazy is, find your people, you know, find your people, because the fact that you can be an 8 with me is excellent. Doesn't that feel good to you?
Oh, I have so much fun.
Right, exactly. Like I feel like that too. And I've said that before, but I feel like our relationship has leveled up so much over the last year in the most amazing way. You left after coming over last night, and it just made my heart so happy for you to come over and have a fake beer and laugh and giggle and, you know, whatever. It just
In the closet.
it's just,
We're like laughing in the closet.
like laughing like schoolgirls in the laundry room. You know, I mean, it's just yes. All of those things, you know, being able to just not get so twisted up in all the bullshit, you know, so figuring out how to, you know, find a way to be awkward and brave and weird and just enjoy that. Find your people that embrace that. That's my may I suggest for this week. So, well, with that note, I feel like I've really shared, I'm going to have to find some clothes. I feel like I've shared a lot of stuff today. I feel very vulnerable. But in doing so, hopefully that is leading for other people. I've never once been disappointed with leading with vulnerability. Not once. I feel like it brings good things every single time. And so even though I'm sitting here completely uncomfortable with today's podcast, I hope that it brings something out for people and kind of helps them along their journey to get rid of some of their gunk and their muck that they may or may not realize that they're dragging around as well. Because we can do those hard things. We can figure out and do those and know that we're not gifted any additional time. Like, you don't know if this is your last stuff or not, you know. This could be my last day. You don't know. Live accordingly. Do you know what I mean? Don't just assume that we're going to keep putting stuff off. Do the big things now, you know. So with that being said, if you have questions or suggestions, our email address is ladies@letsgetnakedpodcast.com. And I don't think I have anything else. I think this was a fun story time, and hope you guys get something out of it. So that's a wrap.
I'd love to help you get vulnerable. Let's get naked.